I remember the moment I stopped recognizing myself. It wasn't when the surgeon explained that my appendix had burst and that sepsis was creeping through my bloodstream. It wasn't when they rolled me into the operating room, the ceiling lights blurring above me like stars falling out of orbit. It wasn't even when I woke up alone, disoriented, my throat raw from a breathing tube I didn't remember needing.
No.
The moment I stopped recognizing myself came later. Much later. It came when I held a set of divorce papers in my shaking hands, my incisions still tender, my body still fighting to remember how to heal, and realized that the man I married had erased me from his life, while I was still fighting to stay in mine. My name is Elena. To the outside world, I was just Marcus's wife. The quiet one. The supportive partner who never made a fuss. I drove a modest car, wore last season's coats, and always let him take the lead at dinner parties. People thought I was lucky. They thought he was the provider.
I let them think that.
I let him think that. Before I met Marcus, I had spent 7 years building a digital marketing agency from the floor of my studio apartment. No investors. No family money. Just a laptop, insomnia, and a hunger that kept me awake long after the city went to sleep. By the time we got married, I was making $130,000 a year. Not bad for a girl who grew up eating government cheese and pretending she wasn't hungry at lunchtime. But Marcus was proud. Fragile proud. The kind of proud that mistakes humility for weakness and silence for submission. Early in our relationship, I made the mistake of offering to help with his student loans. His face turned red. His jaw tightened. He told me, in that clipped, controlled voice he used when his ego was bleeding, that he didn't need a woman to carry him. So, I stopped offering. I opened a separate account. I never mentioned my income again. I thought I was protecting him. I thought love meant making space for someone else's insecurities. I thought if I was small enough, quiet enough, invisible enough, he would feel big enough to love me fully. I was wrong. The silence I chose to keep became the weapon he used against me. Looking back, I should have seen the cracks forming long before the floor gave way. It wasn't the big fights that should have warned me. It was the small things. The way he stopped asking about my day. The way his eyes would glaze over when I mentioned a project I was excited about. The way he started coming home later and later, smelling not of perfume or alcohol, but of something far worse. Indifference. I told myself he was stressed. Work was demanding. He was under pressure to make partner. So I started doing more. I took over the laundry, the meal planning, the cleaning. I managed our social calendar. I made sure his mother remembered his birthday. I handled everything that distracted him from his career. And I did it all quietly, happily. Because that's what love does, right? Love carries the weight so the other person can fly. But Marcus wasn't flying. He was drifting. One evening, I overheard him on the phone with his brother. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just passing through the hallway with a basket of his folded shirts. Yeah, he said, his voice low and casual. It's fine. She's just simple, you know? Low maintenance. No drama. I stopped walking. Simple. He wasn't describing my personality. He was describing my value. And in that moment, I realized he had no idea who I actually was. Because I had hidden it so well, he assumed there was nothing to find. I didn't confront him. I told myself it didn't matter. Actions speak louder than words, and my actions, my quiet support, my financial contributions hidden like guilty secrets, would surely prove my worth. But you cannot prove something to a man who isn't looking. It started with a pain in my lower abdomen. Dull at first. Easy to ignore. I ignored it for 3 weeks. By the time I collapsed in the grocery store parking lot, my insides were a battlefield. The ER doctor said my appendix had ruptured days ago. Peritonitis had set in. Sepsis was knocking at the door. I remember looking at Marcus as they wheeled me toward the operating room. His face was pale. His hand was cold. "I'll be here when you wake up," he said. Those were the last kind words he ever spoke to me. The surgeries saved my life, but recovery was brutal. I was in the hospital for 12 days. 12 days of tubes and beeping machines and waking up in the dark, not knowing if it was 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. Marcus visited. At first, he'd sit in the plastic chair by the window, scrolling through his phone, occasionally glancing up to ask if I needed anything. He never brought flowers. He never held my hand. On day 4, I noticed he was wearing a new watch. "That's nice," I whispered, my voice still raspy from the breathing tube. He looked down at his wrist like he'd forgotten it was there.
Oh, yeah.
Early birthday gift to myself. I didn't ask how much it cost. I didn't ask why he was buying luxury accessories while I was lying in a hospital bed fighting an infection that nearly killed me. I was too busy trying to stay alive to notice that he was already packing his emotional bags. On day 7, a new face appeared in my room. Her name was Candace. She was a travel nurse on a short-term contract, filling in for the regular staff. She was blonde,
Petite.
soft-spoken. She checked my vitals with practiced efficiency and smiled at Marcus on her way out. He smiled back. It was a small smile, barely a flicker, but I knew that smile. I had married that smile. Still, I said nothing, because that's what simple, low-maintenance wives do. They trust. They don't make accusations based on a look that lasted 2 seconds. I trusted him. That was my mistake. On day 10, a process server walked into my hospital room. I thought it was a mistake. I thought maybe it was related to work, or a vendor dispute, or some administrative error. It wasn't. I held the divorce papers in my hands, my fingers trembling against the legal letterhead. My incision burned. My heart stopped. Dissolution of marriage. Marcus had filed 2 days after my surgery, while I was still intubated, while I was still fighting for my life. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. He didn't even have the decency to tell me to my face. I called him. No answer. I texted. Left on read. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how a man who promised to love you in sickness and in health could abandon you mid-sickness. I later learned that he had moved out of our apartment the same day he filed. He took the good furniture, the television, the silverware my grandmother left me. He left my shoes in a heap by the door, like trash waiting for pickup. Candace stopped coming to my room. She was assigned to a different floor, the charge nurse explained. But I knew. I always knew. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. I was still using a cane. Marcus didn't attend the final hearing.
His lawyer handled everything.
He asked for nothing. Not the car, not the apartment, not the joint savings, which contained exactly $4,300. He didn't know about my separate account. He didn't know about my business. He thought he was leaving a broke, boring woman who had nothing to offer but medical debt and a slow recovery. He thought he was getting off easy. 2 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I saw the engagement announcement on Facebook. Marcus Whitmore and Candace Holloway. A winter wedding. Intimate ceremony. Friends and family only. The comment section was overflowing with congratulations. "She's so beautiful. You deserve happiness, man. Finally, someone who matches your energy." I closed my laptop. I walked to the window. I watched the rain blur the city lights. And for the first time since the surgery, I didn't feel pain. I felt clarity. Grief is loud, but clarity is silent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't send angry texts or drunk voicemails or passive-aggressive memes. I didn't expose him on social media. I didn't call his mother. Because here's the truth they don't tell you about revenge. The loudest explosions are often the least effective. True destruction doesn't announce itself. It settles into the foundation, quietly, patiently, until one day the whole structure collapses under its own weight. I decided to become that weight. The first thing I did was heal. Not just my body, my mind. I went to therapy. I journaled. I sat with the rage until it stopped burning and started sharpening. Then I took inventory. My business. During the 6 weeks of my divorce, my agency had grown 30%. My team didn't even know I'd been hospitalized. They thought I was on a sabbatical. While Marcus was busy falling in love with a woman who checked his blood pressure, I was closing a 6-figure contract with a wellness brand. My finances. I had $190,000 in liquid assets, investments, retirement accounts, a safety net so thick I could fall from any height, and land without a scratch. Marcus's vulnerabilities. He wasn't a bad lawyer, but he wasn't a great one either. He was competent, average, the kind of associate who does solid work but never stands out. He desperately wanted to make partner, but the partners viewed him as reliable, not irreplaceable. And Candace, she was a travel nurse, temporary by nature. She didn't have roots in this city. She didn't have family nearby. She had a man who charmed her with his sad story about his ungrateful ex-wife. I wondered how long that charm would last once the financial reality set in. I didn't want to destroy Marcus. That would be too quick, too merciful. I wanted him to destroy himself. And I wanted Candace to have a front row seat. I started with the watch. You remember the watch. The one he bought himself while I was in the ICU. I did some digging. It was an Omega Seamaster. $6,200. Marcus made $85,000 a year. After taxes, rent, and his student loan payments, he had maybe $1,200 a month in disposable income. A $6,200 watch wasn't a treat. It was a flex, and flexes require an audience. I created a fake profile. Female, attractive, profession, marketing consultant. I named her Sloan. I made her smart, successful, and just the right amount of unavailable. Sloan sent Marcus a connection request on LinkedIn. He accepted within 4 hours. She didn't flirt. She didn't send emojis or winky faces. She simply commented on his profile. Impressive background. Always looking to connect with sharp legal minds. Marcus responded within 10 minutes. That's the thing about men like him. They don't need a woman to offer them anything. They just need a woman to notice them. Over the next 3 weeks, Sloan and Marcus developed a virtual friendship. She asked about his cases. He complained about his workload. She mentioned she was considering a legal retainer for her agency. He offered to review her contracts. All the while I was watching, taking notes. Sloan never suggested anything inappropriate. She never crossed a line. She simply existed as a mirror, reflecting back the image Marcus wanted to see. Successful, desired, respected. And here's what I learned. Marcus wasn't happy. He was drowning. Candace, it turned out, had $40,000 in credit card debt she hadn't disclosed before the wedding. Her travel nurse salary was inconsistent. She wanted a baby. He wanted to wait. She wanted a house. He couldn't afford one. The fairy tale was already developing cracks. I just needed to apply pressure. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. Marcus's law firm was acquired by a larger regional firm. The merger meant restructuring. Partnership decisions were being accelerated. Everyone was competing for a seat at the table. One evening, Sloan received a message from Marcus. He was drunk. I could tell by the typos. He was worried. A rival associate had landed a major client, and Marcus was being pushed to the margins. I need a win, he wrote. Something big. Something that proves I'm partner material. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I gave it to him. Through my agency, I had connections to a tech startup looking for legal representation. They were mid-stage, well-funded, and exactly the kind of client that makes partners sit up and take notice. I instructed my COO, a trusted friend who knew my situation, to reach out to Marcus directly. We heard you're the best in the city for corporate law. Can you take a meeting? Marcus didn't hesitate. He took the meeting. He landed the client. The partners were impressed. He had no idea the client was mine. Over the next 6 months, Marcus's career soared. He was assigned to bigger cases. He was invited to partner retreats. He started coming home later, working weekends, skipping dinners. Candace started posting cryptic quotes on Instagram. Some people change. Others just reveal who they've always been. I felt no pity. Then came the mistake. In his rush to impress the startup CEO, Marcus overlooked a conflict of interest. It was small, buried in the fine print. But in the legal world, small mistakes become big problems when the right person points them out. I was the right person. I didn't report him. I didn't file a complaint. I simply scheduled a coffee meeting with one of the senior partners, a woman I'd met years ago at a charity gala, before I became invisible. I didn't mention Marcus by name. I just asked a question. Hypothetically, if an associate took on a client with a conflict, how would the firm typically handle that? She thanked me for my concern. She said she'd look into it. 3 weeks later, Marcus was informed that his partnership track was being extended. Indefinitely. He wasn't fired. He wasn't publicly shamed. He was simply stalled. His income plateaued. His status froze. The client he thought was his ticket to the top was reassigned to a senior partner. He never knew who asked the question. He never knew it was me. I didn't attend his firm's holiday party.
But I heard about it.
Apparently, Marcus drank too much. Apparently, he complained loudly about the politics holding him back. Apparently, Candace had to drive them home. Apparently, she wasn't happy about it. The marriage lasted another 8 months. Candace filed for divorce on a Tuesday. I know this because my paralegal, yes, I have a paralegal now, my agency acquired a small media law firm, pulled the public record for me. Irreconcilable differences. The irony was exquisite. I didn't celebrate. I didn't pop champagne or dance in my living room. I simply sat in my home office, looking out at the city skyline, and felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Peace.
Marcus reached out 6 months later. A text. Unsolicited. I know you probably hate me. I just want you to know I think about you sometimes.
Hope you're okay.
I didn't respond. He sent another text a week later. I heard your business is doing really well. That's great. You deserve it. Still, I said nothing. Then, 3 days ago, I received a letter. Handwritten. His handwriting was shakier than I remembered. Elena, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just need you to know that I understand now. You were never simple. You were never low maintenance. You were just waiting for me to see you. And I was too blind, too arrogant, too stupid to look. I lost a woman worth $130,000 a year because I couldn't handle a woman worth everything.
Candace is gone.
My career is stagnant. I live in a one-bedroom apartment and eat microwave dinners. And the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night, is knowing I did this to myself. You didn't ruin me. You just stopped saving me. I hope that brings you peace. It should. I folded the letter. I placed it in the drawer with the divorce papers I never threw away. Then I went for a walk. The air was cold. The sky was clear. And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't think about Marcus at all. People often ask me if revenge is satisfying. I tell them it depends on how you define satisfaction. If satisfaction means watching someone fall as low as they tried to make you feel, then yes, there is a certain cold comfort in the geometry of justice. But if satisfaction means healing the part of you that believed you were small, invisible, undeserving, then revenge is only the beginning. The real work came after. The real work was learning to speak without apologizing for the sound of my voice. It was walking into boardrooms full of men in expensive suits and remembering that I built my success with nothing but a laptop and a refusal to quit. It was forgiving myself for the years I spent shrinking, bending, hiding. Not because I was weak, but because I was trying to protect a man who never once asked if I needed protection too. I don't hate Marcus anymore. I don't even hate Candace. She was just collateral damage in someone else's war. But I do carry a lesson with me, one I will never forget. Silence is not the same as peace. Accommodation is not the same as love. And making yourself small does not make you safe. It just makes you easier to overlook. I am not small anymore. I haven't been for a long time. The woman who lay in that hospital bed, alone and afraid and legally erased, she is still part of me. I don't reject her. I don't shame her. She did the best she could with the love she was given.
But she is not who I am today.
Today, I am the woman who walks into a room and doesn't check to see if anyone is looking. Today, I am the woman who signs her own checks, sets her own hours, and answers to no one's ego but her own. Today, I am the woman who took a betrayal that was meant to break her and used it as fuel. Marcus thought he was leaving nothing behind. He didn't realize I was carrying everything I needed inside me the whole time.